There we go. Hey, welcome back everybody. Good week to you. I've had a wonderful weekend and a great start to the week. I hope you're having the same. How's everybody doing out there? We got a crazy show planned this week. I'm going to go back through all of the basics, all 9 steps in the video that came out this morning. If you missed the video, it's a fantastic video, but don't worry. I'm going to go through it tonight, answer questions about it and everything. I know it's been a busy season, hasn't it, for solar? Just a lot of stuff going on. A lot of people releasing videos. It's been a really good season. I hope everybody's having a good one. I want to see if I can get the comments here to show up on the screen. There we go. Let's see if they work. Just put something out there just so I can see. Oh yeah, they are. Okay, so your comments are on the screen, guys. So if you got anything to say, let's share. I've been playing with the software a little bit. I'm trying to familiarize myself with it, but there's a few of the features that are just, they should be part of the basic software and they're not. And it's kind of annoying. So like the being able to only use one active camera. So if I want to switch cameras, I've got to go into configuration and change the camera and all that, but that's neither here nor there. It doesn't make any difference. So how is everybody tonight? I know I've had a pretty busy weekend, and I spent the weekend testing a new whole home inverter. The video I think comes out next Monday. It's going to be fantastic, but I will at the end of this, I think at the end of this live stream, I'm going to give everybody, if you're a member, you've already got access to it. You can go out there and watch it. If you're not a member, I will give you a sneak peek of that one coming up at the end of this this show. I will go ahead and for those of you who are still online, I'll go ahead and show that to you. Having a little trouble getting comfortable in my seat tonight, so excuse my dancing around and everything. I had to put the cameras in a goofy little location to get everything to work the way I want it to, just in case I needed to use the whiteboard. But hey, there's NSB. Hey NSB, how you doing? Good evening. Good to see you. It looks like that rain held off for us this week, didn't it? We got some good sun in there. I had a few days where it was kind of a close call, but it did hold off, and man, did we pile in the sun the hours this week. I have never seen anything like it. I did a reassignment of all my panels. Here, let me show you what I'm talking about here. I did see if I can get this to work. Let's try that. That's not what I want. I want that. There we go. So you can see here, I changed some of the settings on my panels. I think I got a better view than that. What about this view? That's a little bit better. But I got, as you can see, all the panels, they're on that side. Well, they're on that side. Everything's backwards on my screen. But I went in and this really cool thing, I've been laying panels out on the ground just to test stuff out. And this week, as you'll see way back here in the back, I had them all leaned up against this fence during the winter hours. And it was kind of odd because during the winter time, I was getting tons of sun, and then the summer came and the fence was actually causing shade because the sun had moved so high up in the sky. So I took some of these that were laying flat and I didn't even buy them. I had 2 packages of the stakes that you buy from Home Depot where you get like 20 stakes for almost nothing. And I basically put in a stake right about here and a stake right about here and then just lean the panels on it. And it lifts the front end of the panel up off the ground about 19 to 20 inches. Now you need about, in my area, I need about 24 to 26 inches to make it the perfect angle. But 19 to 20 inches. And I saw my solar just boom, explode, where I was getting, 1,800 or so from this group of panels right here up here in the front. It was jumped up into the 2,600 watt range. It was just, wow, gone crazy. You got some new panels up yesterday also, huh, SB? Hopefully a bunch of good ones, maybe a little bit more permanently mounted than mine. Mine change all the time, so you know, as I'm playing with things and stuff. But I got this new inverter here on the right, this ZLPower 10K inverter came in, and man, that thing is a beast. You would think for some, you know, generic Chinese brand like that it wouldn't be any good, but the thing is that it is an actual repackaged SRNE, which is a really good inverter. The insides of it are good. The 10 kilowatts. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to try, which is the video I was telling you about that comes out next week. I'm just going to try putting that thing on, taking my whole house. I'm going to shut the solar panels on the roof off. I'm going to shut the grid off, and I'm going to plug that thing in with a big 50 amp cable and just see what it can do. I ran my whole house, everything, the whole thing, shebang, 24 hours on these panels, between these and these. See if I can get this other one to show up here too. I ran the whole house, and you can see there's panels all the way down there. So there's 16 against this back wall. There's another 8 right here. There's 6 here, 6 here, and then you come over into this side over here. Oops, that's not the button I want. I want this button here. Then there's 8 more here, and there's 6 more against this wall there. And then there's a few more that go to that I'm using for the coffee trailer. But the coffee trailer is a completely different beast and game altogether. Yes, scored 7 Talsun 405s for 300. Oh, nice deal. Facebook, same old story, isn't it? It's funny how all these people keep telling me I can't do it until I hear from people like you that it happened. Unless, of course, you just got them from some friends or something like that. But either way, you got them. That's the only thing that matters, really. I'm trying to drink my coffee. I was feeling a little under the weather earlier today, and it just so the coffee, I think, is really important. As a matter of fact, I'm going to move it right over here. Oh, it's invisible. Well, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Yeah, Facebook, they were branded new also. Really? Well, that's nice. That's a good deal. That's a really good deal, actually. 405s. I'd like to get a few of them and put up on my shed, but I'm not going to put some used ones up there. I want to put some new ones up there, because if I'm going to, you know, puncture holes in the shed roof and seal it all up and everything, I don't want to climb up there twice. I'm allergic to heights. Well, I'm not really allergic to heights. I'm allergic to falling. And so that part of it, I don't even know how I put those panels on my RV. Some days I go about 6 feet in the air and I start shaking and I can't move. And other days I just walked up the side of the RV, walked across the top, picked up panels and laid them up on the top. Just depends on what I'm doing. You know, I have days where I don't have a problem and other days where I can. Let's see. City Clean Out worker sold them to me. Wow. Oh, it's a City Clean Out. Yeah, those guys are gold mines if you can find them. I got one of my sets like that here they got a lot of those the junk dealers and stuff like that. A lot of the times they're trying to just get rid of things for people and clean out houses and stuff. And if you get in with them, just give them, you know, tell them who you are and tell them, look, if they run into solar panels, you'll give them some money for them. They'll call you up, give them to you for free. When you sell them off or you pay for a couple bucks for each one, you get away with them for almost nothing. But finding those guys is really hard. So, but yeah, that's kind of cool. That's a great deal though. 7 panels for 4 or 5, $300, $300 total. Wow. I don't even have my calculator. Let's see if I can come up with a calculator here. Figure out what my head isn't working today. It's been, like I said, I'm not feeling a little under the weather today. I don't know what the heck the deal is. Hopefully it'll pass soon though, because I don't get sick. It's $42 a piece, but still, for a brand new 405 watt panels, heck yeah, heck of a deal. All right, who else we got out there? I see tons of people online. I don't see anybody talking tonight. We're just going through it. So I got that new inverter in, and you can see it. So it's been really good. Hey, Mike. Hey, Mike, how's it going? I was going to check in with you earlier today, and I forgot to do it. We'll get to talking. I want to do a tools event next week. If you're interested, let me know. But anyway, so looking at this new inverter, I just was amazed at just how good this thing ran. The surge power was awesome. I did have one little hiccup when I had, like the hot water heater and the air conditioner kick on as a 3-ton AC. I would have the glitch on the internet modem, which is kind of strange because the internet modem is supposed to have a battery in it. So I don't even know, after I got done making the video, I got to thinking, I don't know why that thing was rebooting. It must have something screwy in it, or it must be super sensitive. Oh, I'm glad to hear you're doing excellent. I saw your video this morning. It was you got it was the Helsing battery, right? Is that the right one? Am I thinking of the right video? That thing was a beast. Oh yeah, because you got that cool thumbnail. That one that was just sitting in the middle of the floor glowing. Yeah, that was cool. That's a great video. If you guys haven't seen his video on the Helsing battery, you should actually go and see it. PM me a link to it, Mike. I'll post it here for everyone to go take a look at. Hopefully, some we get a few views out of it. It's a cool battery. It's kind of like that same thing. It's a 314 like the one I got, and although now they got those crazy ones coming out. Did you see that 1,000-pound video battery this week? Holy cow! 1,000 pounds on a battery. Runs 3 in parallel, 700 and 900 amp hours or something, just absolutely crazy. These batteries and the prices are just getting out of control. They're just getting out of control good is what I mean. That's what it is. Anyway, I just wanted to, this week I got a really cool thing planned for you guys. I'm going to take the video series that I did for all of the basic components of the solar system, and I want to put them all in, kind of just go through them all with you guys tonight, and just talk a little bit about basic solar systems. We do so many of these live streams where what we're talking about is so advanced, and I get a lot of requests from people that are new that they walk in and we're in the middle of something that's super complicated. So hopefully a lot of them have started will start at the beginning. Yeah, ain't that the truth? At some point there will be a fire risk. I think we're already beyond that. If you've seen all the fire risk videos this week out, it's just amazing. That's getting a good response, and a much needed response, don't get me wrong. I think it's great that we're all taking a look at our fire risk. I know I've got a couple of big, as you all know, I'm actually in a shed, but mine is not a sealed shed like a lot of those folks are. Mine's a vented with fans, so I don't really have the problem of build up with the possible of an explosion, especially considering that, with the bit miner and everything running, I've got air constantly venting from fresh air in, hot air out. Don't really have much of a problem there. But the fire risk is certainly a huge talk this week. But I probably will end up doing something on it. I did one as well. Yes. Oh yeah, you did. I remember that one too. You had two. Yeah, you've had a couple of videos all of a sudden this week. Got to get a bunch of them done, and that's kind of how I work too. I get like 2 or 3 of them started, and then all of a sudden I have like everything done for like 3 or 4 videos all at one time. It's kind of crazy. Oh, that coffee is good this week. I need it too. Yeah, so you have That wasn't you that did the ventilation in the ventilation. I don't remember what your ventilation was. You had the big fan up in the peak, right? I don't remember. I remember watching it, but I don't remember all the details. I think I've been watching too many videos this week. Maybe that's why I'm not feeling good. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the basics of a solar system. And I took a couple of pictures here of basically the, oh, it was that one. Okay, good. And I left the chat box up on the window this week. So if you got questions, please feel free to just post them here. If you post anything that is derogatory or anything like that, you will promptly get knocked off the channel. I'm going to hope that I can do this and trust you guys not to do anything obnoxious, but you never know. There's always got to be one, so we'll see who the one is, but hopefully there'll be none. Anyway, so let's start off with, I started off with, this one here. I start off here and I'm walk you through the basic elements of the solar system, and I'm just going to talk through each one of them. The video, I'm going to show you guys a sneak peek of my the inverter up in the ZLPower inverter video at the end of this show tonight. So it'll be only for members get to see it between now and next week if you want. If you're a member, you get to go have access to it automatically. But those of you who are here on the live stream at the end of the show, it will be there also. And as soon as the live stream's over, then I'm going to cut it off so only those that were here at the end of the live stream actually get to see it. But that video goes through, me getting that inverter set up. And once I get that inverter set up, I realized that that little 120 volt box over here on the right ain't going to cut it. And so I had to find a new way to test it. And the way I tested it is I shut everything off to my house. I shut off the roof solar system, the grid tied system. I shut off the grid. I shut off everything. And I plugged that inverter right into the house and ran everything off of all of the content here from the solar shed. The panels that you see here in the yard, the vertical ones I have on the fence over here, and everything was running with the exception of I did not add anything in from the coffee trailer system here. But I did power the whole house and ran that way for about 16 hours. And then we were leaving and going over to some friend's house for stuff. And I had actually ran all the tests I wanted to run. So I switched it back at that point. But it was fantastic. It ends up being a really good video. And one of those where it's not just somebody reading you a whole bunch of specs. I actually, do something real with it. So it was kind of a fun, the solar panel, you talking about the solar panels look clean? Yeah, well, they are. I just finished mounting them all on the ground. I was telling you guys earlier, I bought those, I had two of those big packs of stakes, just those cheap wooden 18-inch stakes. And I thought to myself, instead of having these solar panels just laying all over the yard, which I had previously had done, I thought I'm just going to put a couple of stakes in. Like I put one up in this corner and one up in this corner and see if I can get a proper angle on them. And I needed a 20, I think it was 24, 26-inch lift, something like that. I couldn't remember the exact measurements. And I ended up getting about 17 or 18 inches out of it. But it ended up with almost a perfect angle. And my solar production on one string went from about 1,800 watts to about 2,600 watts peak. Now, not constantly, but the peak jumped a lot. So it was really worth it. And not to mention now, my lawn guy will be very happy with me. And he'll be able to get under them and get it, keep it clean and keep it from overgrowing. But yeah, they turned out looking pretty clean. It almost looks like my own little personal solar farm. If I give you the right picture, I think I have a second picture here. Oh, that probably is the second picture. Let's see if this one's any better. There's one of them that, I don't know, see that one shows you them all the way down to the corner around here, because there's 16 along this back wall, and I moved them off of the wall here. I was gonna mount them like I did these. And so these have hinges at the top, and I put out a video about this too, and it works really good. These things really are nice, because when the guy comes to mow, I can just take the 2x4s off the bottom here. They fold up against the wall. If there's a hurricane coming, I can just screw them right straight to the fence, and they're just part of the fence. No big deal there. And then all that's wonderful. But then I got to looking, you know, back here at this whole string of these across the whole back fence. And and looking wasn't all I did. I'll explain. The panels themselves, they have a metal trim around the edges. Anyone who's ever put up a solar panel, you know, you've got that little aluminum frame around the edge. Well, these actually have something in that frame. I don't know, it was a cushion or a seal or something. And when I put, you can see first panel right here is hanging on the fence vertically. These are just leaning against the shed. But that one right there is on this back fence next to these four here. And it has hinges on the top and it's slinged out. But when I went to put the second one in, as soon as I hung it on the fence, if it wasn't perfectly straight, because those screws went into that aluminum frame and then hit that cushion underneath, it put a little pressure on the solar panel. It went and shattered the whole panel all the way down, like little bitty fragments of glass everywhere. And I thought, okay, these panels aren't going to work for that because they don't have just an aluminum frame. They have an aluminum frame with a wedge or something in it. I should have taken some pictures of it so I could show you guys. But so I decided that I wasn't going to hang these. And to be honest with you, if a hurricane comes, I really didn't want to take them down anyway. So this way, if I put them on stakes like this, they're kind of temporary, but the nice thing is they can all be, I can walk behind these now, I can disconnect them all, I can pick them up, I can carry them in, strap them down in the shed, lock them down, and not worry about, you know, bad things happening during the hurricane. Unless, of course, it takes the whole shed. Now, if it takes the whole shed, there ain't nothing I can do about it anyway. It's going to take the house, the shed, the cars, everything. So I can't worry about that. But anyway, back to off the subject, back to this piece. So the main piece, there were four main parts of that video. The first four parts are the battery, the charger, the inverter, and the solar panels. Now, a lot of people that get started on the solar system can really start with just three of them because those are the three that provide power and recharging. So let's say that you wanted to run a small charger for your phone, or you wanted to run a small, you know, a little DC light, a little reading light, or even some fans. I know Amy, if she's here this week, she's got some chicken coop fans that she runs. And in that case, of those four main parts, you really only need three of them. You need a way to, and in her case, you only need two of them. You need a way to collect solar energy, which is your solar panels. Solar panels do nothing but take that energy in and convert it into DC electricity. Now, the problem with DC electricity is you have voltage and you have amperage, and that amount of power that's coming in has to be stored in a battery. The problem is the batteries are at consistent voltages, and you don't want to take a whole bunch of voltage from a solar panel and pump it into the battery that's, let's say you have a 30 volt solar panel. You don't want to pump that directly into a battery that's 12 volts because it obviously is going to do some damage. So the way that you solve that is you use what we call a charge controller. Now, the charge controller is basically nothing more than it takes the power from those batteries and converts it into a way the power from those solar panels and converts it to a consumable or a storable voltage that the battery can then take and store safely. And in this case, there's usually two different types. There's really three different ways you can do this. The first way I don't suggest, but you'll see it sometimes in trickle chargers. A little trickle charger for a boat battery to keep your boat battery warm. It's a little bitty 10-watt panel, has very low wattage, very, very slow trickle charge, nothing more than to keep the average daily sitting around battery from dying. That you can do safely at that very, very low wattage. That's nothing but a little solar panel and a battery. The voltage on that solar panel is very specifically designed to be just high enough to keep the battery charged, and just the wattage coming in is just low enough to where it can't do any damage, that even if it's full, it's not really enough to do any damage. That's the very first kind, and that's how a lot of people remember seeing solar in its early days, because they didn't have what we call charge controllers, which we have now. So then they came out with PWM charge controllers. And a PWM charge controller basically takes, no matter what that voltage is, it takes it and it just trims it off to a safe voltage for that battery. So if you've got 30 volts coming in from a solar panel, it will trim it down to where the right voltage for that particular battery is, and then it'll allow the battery to consume what's there. The problem is I use the word trim intentionally because it really does just cut off the top part of that. And that means all the power that was in that voltage between, let's just, for argument's sake, it's not actually 12 volts, but let's just, for argument's sake, say it was. They trim off everything from 12 volts up to that 30 volts. And that means that that 18 volts that was trimmed off and all the power that was in it is lost. And this is what makes PWM, in most cases, inefficient, and in other cases, not as user-friendly. And let me explain why. Inefficient in the case that there's more power there than it has to trim off. All that power that it trims off is wasted. That's what I mean by inefficient. But let's just suppose that you make it exactly the right voltage for exactly where your battery happens to be. And if your battery is at 12.8 volts and it needs to be 12.9 to charge, then let's just say that you magically have solar panels that are putting out exactly 12.9 volts. That's great, but now you're limited to how much power they can put out, because only so much can go into that voltage. And so then you end up with that problem of the PWM still has to stop at the 12.9 volts based on the power you have. And no matter how big you get, there's only so much that you can put in there. So then they came out with the newer charge controllers, which you've probably heard about and understand them to be MPPT. MPPT stands for maximum power point. And what it basically does is it finds between the voltage coming in and the voltage going out, it finds the spot in the middle where it can get the absolute most power out of that solar panel. So let's say that solar panel is producing 30 volts, but that if it pulls just hard enough at 28 volts, it gets the most power out of it can. Because you can have 28 volts of 28 volts and get 30 watts, or you can have 30 volts and only get 10 watts. And so the point of an MPPT is to go around and search for that maximum power point. Now, most panels are designed to extract based on a certain voltage, to go up to a certain voltage, and then you pull on it. And think of it this way. Think of an MPPT like a water hose. When you have a water hose and you turn the hose on, if you open it up full spout, then the water just kind of trickles out. But if you start to close it just a little bit, it sprays a little bit. And if you close it too much, then yes, it may spray further, but it may not put out as much water. And there is a happy medium in that shutting of that valve of how hard can you pull. The differences between water and solar panels is the panels, you're pulling the water out of the hose. And in a water hose, the water is being pushed out. So it's a little bit different when you go to suck water out of it. And I guess you could look at it as sucking water out of a barrel. Depending on how hard you suck and how big the hole is can depend on how much you could get out of it. Now, the simple fact is there's a maximum limit you can get out of it. And the MPPT's job is to figure out where that voltage is and how hard can it pull at all the voltages between where the battery's voltage is and where the peak voltage is, and how hard it can pull at all the different things. Now, on a Victron charge controller, you will actually see the Victron spike all the way up to the highest voltage and then drop down all the way to the lowest voltage. And usually, let's say it's a 12-volt battery, it'll drop down all the way to that 12 volts, and then it'll go all the way back up, and it'll do this 2 or 3 times. And what it's doing is it's searching for the maximum power point, and that's what MPP stands for. So that's why you have two voltages in the solar panels and why your battery's voltage is so important, because your solar panels have to add up to more than the battery voltage, but they also have to be pulled down to the battery voltage to be placed in there. So that's where your solar panels and your charge controllers work together to produce the power from the solar panels and adjust that power to where the battery can consume and store it safely, is where, and that's what the battery's job is. Now you have so that's really the first three really important parts in a solar system, is getting the power from the sun, from the solar panels, converting it into the right power so that the battery can store it. Now, with MPPT, the important distinction between how we discuss PWM is that with MPPT, it finds that maximum power point, and then it actually converts the power down at the bottom using what we call, what an electrician or what somebody in an electrical world would call Ohm's law. And what that law is basically, it's just a conversion technique. And let's just say that you're talking about apples. If you have 3 small apples and those 3 apples equal 1 big apple, well, then you could convert somebody saying, hey, I've got 5 big apples. You could say, well, how many small apples are you going to have? Well, you're going to have 15 small apples. It's equal to 5 big apples. The same thing's true in electricity, but only with voltage and wattage. Wattage tells you the total you're going to have, and voltage and amps tell you how to multiply to get to that. So for example, if you have 10 volts and 10 amps, then you have 100 watts. 10 times 10 is 100. But if you have 20 volts, then the same amount wouldn't be 20 times 10, it'd be 20 times 5, and that would give you the same amount of wattage in the whole sum of things. And that is what your MPPT charge controller is doing. It is taking that power, and you'll see that's the charge controller right here, this blue box in the middle. Now, in my system here, I have several charge controllers. I have one in this all-in-one inverter, and I have one in this all-in-one inverter. But this down here is specifically just a charge controller and nothing more. And so this is where solar has kind of gotten a little bit more confusing over the last couple of years. It's gotten more confusing, but also better and easier. They're combining components into single devices to make it very easy for people to work with. But at the same time, it is making some of them a little bit more difficult to understand, because you hear the word charge controller and then you look at a system like this one up over my shoulder, the blue one over here or that one over there, and it's not only a charge controller where it can have, got the breaker switches in it, it's got off-on switches in it, it's got an inverter in it, it's got, and it's got all of these other items combined into it. To once you get experience and you understand what all those parts do, you're thankful you don't have to connect them all together. But understanding what each one of them does, you still have to be able to set the right number of panels for the charge controller, and therefore you still have to understand what is a charge controller and how does it work. And that's the 3 basic pieces that we've talked about so far, are going to be that the solar panels coming into a charge controller, whether that charge controller is an MPPT or a PWM, and then it's going to send that power over to the battery. Now, the 4th main basic component, and these 4 components are practically every solar system is going to use them. The 4th one is only if you want AC power. In other words, if you've got items that you need to plug into the wall, if you have something like this where you need to plug it in and give it 120 power, then you're going to need an inverter, because the inverter's job does nothing more than take your battery power at whatever voltage it is. It could be a 12 volt battery, it could be a 24 volt battery, it could be a 48 volt battery, a 72 volt battery, a 100 volt battery, a 300 volt battery. I mean, heck, lately they've even seen some 720 volt batteries. But the inverter's job at this point is to take that battery voltage from DC being battery voltage, and convert it into AC power that you can use to plug in things to your wall outlet. Now, it doesn't matter where the wall outlet is in the world, the voltage in the world may change. Overseas, you may have 220 volts or 240 volts. Here in the US, you're going to have 240, 120, where you may have, big items like your dryer is a 240 volt and this outlet here is a 120. That's irrelevant. The fact is they're all AC powered, and that's what the inverter's job specifically is to take that DC power and convert it to AC power. And that allows you to use it for common household devices and stuff. Now, if your solar system, if the system you're building for, let's just say that you're building a system to run a chicken coop, and you've got a whole bunch of chickens, and in this chicken coop, all you want to do is use the sun during the day when it's nice and hot to run some fans, to charge up some batteries, so that in the evening after the sun's gone down, in the morning before the sun comes up really good, that you can keep the chickens, blow some air through them, keep them ventilated. Then in that case, as long as your fans aren't AC powered, as long as they're battery powered fans, and you don't need an AC outlet, then you can skip the inverter. If all you're interested in doing is running the lights in your RV, 99% of all the lights in an RV are DC power. They run off that little 12 volt battery that came with it. And so if you had a solar system to charge that 12 volt battery or that 24 volt battery that's in your RV, then you wouldn't need AC power to run the lights. In your house, most of your lights are AC powered because your house is wired for AC power. Your RV's not. Now, I say it's not meaning that it doesn't exist, not meaning not everything is wired for it. So your refrigerator, it may be battery powered, it may be propane powered, or it may be all three, battery, DC, AC, and propane powered in an RV. Your vent hood could be battery powered or it could be AC powered. The ceiling fans, they could be AC powered. The air conditioners, they could be AC powered, and now they're coming out with DC powered. So you have it gets very complicated when it gets into RV systems because you end up with multiple power units, multiple power types, and the system needs to be kept separate for each one of those. But that said, that doesn't change the fact that those four basic components are really the essentials of what you need. The solar panels to collect that electricity, the charge controller, whether it's a PWM or an MPPT, or even in some cases, as we talked about, that little close, small trickle charge that requires nothing, to put that power directly into the battery at a safe rate to where it doesn't harm the battery. Then you're going to need the inverter, which is going to take that power out of the battery and convert it to AC and make it available for you to run standard household items or whatever else you wanted to plug in. Your TV, your radio, your phone chargers sometimes, and any other device that you may have. Now, they sell inverters for people overseas, for each country, for whatever voltage you use there, whether you only need 120 volts, which a lot of people in like van life will only want 120 volts. A lot of people in RV life will only want 120. Some of them need 240. If you need 240 to run things like split, what am I talking about? So I want to say split phase. AC split units, what am I calling it? Hybrid split units, air conditioners. God, told you it was a long day. If you want to run a split unit and it's a 220, you can do that. You can get this 6000 that's right here and this one on both sides here. This one on this side, the EG4 6000, is a 3000 watt split phase inverter, or 6000 watt split phase inverter, meaning that it will run 240 volts, 6000 watts, for both 110 and 220. The one on the other side, on the other hand, is a 10,000 watt inverter. It will run split phase where it has 5,000 watts on each phase, but it'll also run 240 volts with the same thing with 240 volts. But you can also configure this one to only run 10,000 watts on 120 volts. So you don't have to split it between L1 and L2. So it depends on your use case, what kind of inverter you're going to want. But just know that the inverter is the piece that's going to convert that power to home style wall plugs. And if you don't need those wall plugs, then you won't need that. All right. That was a whole bunch of discussion around those 4 basic components, but those are the 4 basic components that are truly, truly important and that you're really going to need. There are 5 other components after that. I'm actually going to pull up YouTube here real quick. I started making a list of them all earlier today, and I made it to 4. Here we go. Okay, so let's talk about, and I can show you on these pictures where each of these exist and what they're used for. So let's talk about obviously the very first one that all of us are very familiar with. And if I pull it up on this screen here, well, that works. Okay, so on this screen here, we're going to talk about these wires. So wires is one of, I've got 5 different items beyond the 4 basic components that you'll find in most systems. Not all solar systems, but it's really important to understand what these 5 are. I mentioned wires and connectors specifically because wires and connectors are the #1 cause of DIYers or new people getting involved that have problems. When you're going to build a solar system, you don't know what size wire to use, you don't know how to put what connectors on correctly. A lot of people, don't buy the right connectors. They think of everything like a stereo wire in your automobile. And to a certain extent, really nice stereo that puts out lots of, thumps and stuff like that is different than what most people think of when they hook up. I'm going to hook up my stereo, at home, and they plug in some speakers, and they don't think of it as actually carrying any real voltage. In a solar system like this, these wires are specifically sized to handle certain amounts of voltage and certain amperage that goes with them. And either those wires being the right size, and then the connectors, and you can see here, all these connectors on this all have to be crimped onto these wires, and it's extremely important that not only are the wires the right size, but that the crimping of those wires is done appropriately, done correctly. And the reason being is that that's where, in a solar system, the #1 problem are bad connections. And those bad connections can sometimes be because you forget to tighten one of the nuts down on any of these numerous number of connections that you have throughout here. Or it can be that, when you put the lug on, you don't put the lug on correctly, they're made incorrectly, there's not a good, firm connection, or you're just basically inexperienced and haven't really got the knack for it yet. But be warned that that's one of the most important things. And in the video that came out this morning, I go over wires in a lot more detail and explain. I think I even include a video for crimping and showing you how to put lugs on. And then even some of the things are cosmetic. They appear to be cosmetic, and they may not be. For example, I'll show you how to put the wrap on them to protect them. Some people think, well, putting that wrap on is nothing more than cosmetic. To a certain extent it is, but at the same time, the whole reason for covering all of these items is to prevent things from touching on accident and not causing you problems. This is what I would call a rat's nest. If you want to see a beautiful system that in most of the time when you build systems that are going to be not changed all the time, mine is constantly changing. I mean, last week this inverter on the right was mounted in the solar shed. The one on the left wasn't mounted anywhere. And I took them off the wall, mount them over here, changed all the connections. This week, this one was mounted up here. and it was connected, as you can see here, to this box over here, and then I changed it to this wire here to run off to the house. So mine is constantly changing. So don't judge DIY by this messy mess that looks down here. This should be in a fixed system that was off grid, that was used to power a house or something like that, that wasn't being monitored and watched. This would all be boxed, and in order to follow code, would all be within electrical boxes that were safe for, fire safe, and would keep, if a firefighter showed up to fight a fire, it'd keep them safe. It'd have certain shutoffs and things like that. So there's certain things that I leave open because they're changing every day, and I'm working on them constantly, not because that's the way that they should be. But the wires are really important aspect to that. Hitman, how are you? Good to see you. It sounded like it was a good comment. Thank you. I missed it when it came up on the screen, so I just wanted to go back and show it there. In all respects to you too, good to have you. And good to see everybody online tonight. If you have any questions, feel free. I'll get talking and it will take me hours to stop. So if you have questions, the reason I've put it up on the screen tonight is because I will miss them if I don't put it up on the screen. So feel free, just jump in and comment anytime you want. There are no silly comments, there's no silly questions or anything like this. It is designed around teaching people. I'm here to teach people solar and get them involved in it and let you guys learn from it. And by all means, if you see me doing something wrong by it, doubly please tell me, and you won't be the first. I had an electrician write me earlier this week and tell me I had something wrong. So I've even put out videos on it before where I've done things that were against code and I had to go back and redo them. So, as I was saying here, there's some sloppiness here. So this inverter, it'll be here for a week and then there'll be something else up there. So I move things around a lot. But if I was ever to build something that was going permanently in, then it would be a little bit different. It would look a little bit like Mike's. I don't know if Mike is here, but he is. Hey, Gavin. Mike was here also. You should take a look at Mike's and Gavin's actually. Do you like the outlet box? I've been considering getting one. Make sure that Gavin, if you get them, make sure that you get one of the newer ones. They had some at the very beginning, and I think Will had done a video on them. And so just double check them when you get it in, that the ground wires are independently ran, or not the ground wires, the negative wires are independently ran. They had one, I had two of these, and one of them they ran from the negative, or the common. They ran the common around all 4 plugs, and that meant that all 4 20 amp plugs were pulling off the same 20 amp wire. I got lucky and I never had any problems with it until I saw the issue, and I think it was Will that actually put out a video a week later or so on the same exact issue. But that's the only problem I've had with it. They are fantastic for testing. And that's what I use it for. I was telling them I hooked it up to this ZLPower inverter when I first got it, and realized I was just running it off of L1, and then realized it was 10,000 watts, and even if I put it in single phase, I couldn't pull 10,000 watts out of it. So I changed it to run my house, but I love it. It's great for 110. I have not seen one yet for a 220. I use pretty much the same as this breaker box over here for the 220 test. Or except in this case, I just ran this big 50 amp 6-aught cord off to the house and plugged it in through that. But we got the whole gang here tonight. Hello, Edwin. How are you tonight? Good to see you too. Everybody's hanging out. So I don't even remember where I was, but no, I love it, Gavin. It's a great box, and it works really well for 110 stuff. The thing I like about it is you can, in most of your smaller inverters, it's big enough to pull enough to test it all the way. But it's breakered inside so that you don't have any major problems also. The big thing is that I run it with a bigger cable inside here so that I can support everything in there, because it does have 4 20-amp breakers in it. So you'd have to, I don't think it could support that. I think the main breaker, I don't even remember, I think the main breaker is only 60 amps. I think it's 60 amps and then 80 amps if you had all 4 of them running, but you never run it that way unless you're really extreme testing. But it does keep it pretty safe. What do I think about the new DC to DC from Victron? Victron's got quite a few DC to DC items, and I don't know that their new one is much different from the ones they had before. And to be honest with you, a lot of the DC to DC, you can use standard chargers, but are you talking about, because they have a 50 amp DC to DC and a 20 amp. Did they come out with something new that I haven't seen? Let's see. Victron DC to DC. Well, the 50 amp is the same one they've had, the XS. TR 2020, that one they've had, all the TRs, the Orion Smarts. But the Orion Smarts are nothing more. The Orion Smarts take the same voltage from DC to DC, so maybe you could get away with 12 volts. That would be good. The 50. The 50's been out for quite a while, and I'm assuming you're talking about, let me see if I can share my screen real quick. I'm assuming you're talking about this here, this Orion XS. This is a 12 to 50 amp. So this takes like a, as you're driving down the road, your 12 volt alternator power, and allows you to charge your 12 volt house battery in your RV or your solar system or whatnot. The wonderful thing about these is it does allow for input from, as you can see on the screen there, it says from 9 to 17 volts, and it allows you to output charge from 10 to 17. And even if one is lower than the other, it still allows it to happen. That part of it's really cool. The only part that you have to be very, very careful on these, and I'll warn you that a lot of people, I did a video on this exact unit back about 6 months ago. And the one thing that you've got to be very, very careful about is that the alternator in your car or truck or van can support the pull of 50 amps. Now you can configure it to downshift it a little bit. So if you only want it to pull 10 amps or 20 amps, you can configure it for that. And it is lithium safe and battery safe, so it will stop charging when it's supposed to. But that was the only problem that I saw with it, is that if you hook it up, and it's not with it, is if you hook it up to pull 50 amps from, you know, your 6-prong connector or something like that, you will fry the wires going to it. 50 amps is a lot of power, and you will probably need 8-aught or 8 gauge or 6 gauge wire running from your alternator, raw from your alternator, all the way back to the charger in order for that to work safely. And your alternator needs to have the extra power to support it. So a lot of people that can use these end up getting extra alternators just to support it. And I honestly am not sure if the wear and tear on the alternator would be worth the value of the price of the charge. The device works fantastic. Tested it, works great, all that wonderful stuff. But you have to make sure your automobile and your wiring is done for it. The one thing that people had, the biggest problem people had after they figured out what they had to do to make it work, is figuring out how to get 50 amps of 12 volts from your alternator in your car all the way back to the charging device and whatever it happens to be. If it's a van, not that big of a deal. You're only going 5 or 10 feet, but 5 or 10 feet at, 6 gauge wire. If it's going to an RV, you got to go across the gap between the car and the RV, and you can't do it with one of those standard plugs. You can't pull 50 amps through there. You'll just fry all the wires in there. So that's kind of my feedback on that. But it is definitely not new. It's been out, and I have a video on it, so you can go if you're interested in looking at how it installs and everything. I walk through the whole installation. Yes, the 50. Okay, good. I'm really enjoying the 250-100 charge controller. Is that where you put your new panels in, SB? You put them on that charge controller? I know I switched mine off of my 250-100 3 days ago to test the new inverter. And so I took them out of here. As you can see here, I just connected them back today. They were connected right up there to that to test this inverter's input. But I love my 250. The idle consumption's nothing. When it's not charging, it's nothing. At night when there's no sun out or anything, it uses almost nothing. The Victron charge controllers are just fantastic. I need one to charge my battery on my semi truck. Your semi probably has enough extra ampage, but that's where I would check. Just make sure you have, because you're not going to go very far if you're in your cab of your truck. But I would definitely check to make sure A, you have enough voltage to do it, and B, that you have the right size wires to run it there. And then I've also seen recently a lot of them have been putting them in behind that, I don't know what you guys call that stuff that goes up over the top of the cab that protects that blows the wind up over the truck. But I've seen a lot of people putting those little the 200-watt eco-worthy panels up there now, because you can get them mounted up there. They fit pretty well, and I saw, I don't remember who it was. May have been I don't remember his name. He was just south of me here in Florida, though, but I think he actually got 3 of them up there, maybe 4. But they using the solar panels and it worked almost as good, but you don't get to charge while you're driving down the road. That's the downside. But if you're if you're a daytime driver, then I guess it won't make any difference. If you're a nighttime driver, then it makes a huge difference, because then when you get somewhere and your batteries aren't charged. So your truck's 160 amps. And I doubt seriously you're using 160 amps. So having an extra 30 or 40 or 50 amps to charge shouldn't be a problem. But like I said, it is configurable where you can set it down. So if you find out you've only got, 30 amps to charge with or 20 amps to charge with, or that you're on the road long enough to let it charge at 10 amps, then you can do that, because 10 amps is better than nothing. And depending on how big your batteries are, I mean, I'm assuming you've got like is it a 100 amp hour battery or a 200 amp hour battery? That'll tell you how long it's going to need to charge down from 0. If you can tell me what size battery it is, and we can get you an estimate of how long you'd need to drive for it to charge it up. 5S2P on those 400 panels. Oh, those can't be the 400, because you don't have 10 of them, do you? Well, those are the panels you installed a few weeks ago. Well, you're adding panels every week. You're as bad as I am, NSB. You're getting out of control. You're going to end up with a backyard that looks like mine. Not that that's a bad thing. I mean, I pulled in 46 kilowatt hours 2 days ago with that. 46 kilowatt hours with not a single panel mounted. Well, that one right there. Let's see. I am going to install a 12-volt AC on my truck. Oh, okay. So the AC, the 12-volt ACs, they run at about 400 to 600 watts. I was supposed to get one this week, but it never showed up. It's very disappointing. I was going to put one in the coffee trailer, and I would love to get some usage on it and get you guys that. I've seen a couple of 18-wheelers driving down the road with the mini splits hanging off the back of the cab. Those mini splits are fantastic, by the way. I'll tell you, I've got one in the bedroom of my RV, and it's probably a little bigger than the inside of a large truck cab. The big ones, anyway. and that thing, it'll cool it down and nothing flat, and then just sits at 200-300 watts all night long at most to keep it ice cold in there. And I mean ice cold like 65, 62, 63 degrees all night long. And it probably, I would say probably 4 or 5 kilowatt hours for the whole night. One good size, a couple of good sized batteries. I don't know if you're going 12 volts. Yeah, you're going 12 volts on your truck, so that should be fine. You're going to need some big batteries, but then you're going to need to charge it. The problem is you can get the batteries now. They're easy to get. They're big enough, and you can get them to where they're going to run everything. But the downside is that the charging time. Now, if you're charging at 50 amps, that's different, because then you've got, a kilowatt an hour. That would mean, to run that AC for the whole time, if you were on the road for it's about 700, what is that, 700 watts, 5 times, yeah, let me do some math. 50 amps times 12 volts is 600 watts, 0.6 kilowatts. You need, let's say, 7 to run the thing all night long at 0.6. You'll need an 8 or 10 hour day to go from 0 all the way charged to run that thing. But if you're just looking for comfortable, it'll easily do it with a lot less power than that. You have 23 now. You are getting as bad as me. How many do I have? Let me think. I am sitting at 8 and 8 is 16, and 16 and 16 is 32. Plus there's 6, 12, 18 on that one. So 32, 42, 50. Plus there's 5 more for the coffee trailer, so that's 55. Plus there's 3, 4, 5, 6 for the 24 volt test system. So 53, 59? I got 59 panels sitting in the yard and 31 in the house. So 50, I haven't added them up in a long time. 59 plus 31, that's actually easy math. I got 90 solar panels. I got 90 solar panels. Nobody tell the city. All right. Recommendations for, are you looking for recommendations for batteries, or are you looking for recommendations for AC? The AC is a really, they've got those new 12 volt AC air conditioners, but they mount in the roof, and that really would be an ideal situation for you, because then you don't need an inverter. But if you need inverter power anyway, then a mini split, one of those little ones hanging right off the back of your, I've seen them in your cab. Like if you're on your cab here, they come in the back. Just the mini splits is in the very back, and then it goes right through the back wall with one little hole about that big for the refrigerant lines. And then the mini split hangs on the back, right outside the back. The inverter can be right there on that back wall too. And everything is like right there, compact in that one little spot. The only problem you have is solar panels. And if you can't get solar panels, then you could use the Orion 50 to 50. That would be the only other way around it. Yeah, the mini split is ideal. That is the ideal situation, because even a small one, the power consumption of those things is fantastic. And in a little spot like that, oh, they cool off like that. I mean, I can literally turn the AC on in the RV in the bedroom with that mini split. I can turn it on, and it doesn't take 3 minutes to go from 85, 86 degrees to 65. I mean, it's just boom, just like that. And all the condensation just dripped right out the back. Because it's mounted, if it's mounted right there on that wall, that they just run right out the back with the refrigerant lines, and then just drip right outside the back of your truck, right out between that and the cab and the bed, whatever's attached to the back, the trailer. How many batteries you think you're going to need? Okay, so my guess would be that if you're looking to sleep, let's say you're going to sleep for 8 hours, and let's say that it runs for 350 watts times 8 hours is 2.8 kilowatts. Yeah, and it is AC. So we're going to have to do the losses there. So we'll consider that being 18. That's 3.5 kilowatts. Plus you're going to want some buffer in there, 1.2. So you're looking at about 4 to 5, probably 5 kilowatt hours, and then you're going to want some safety room. But that shouldn't be difficult to get. They've got 12-volt batteries, 5 kilowatts. 5 kilowatts. 10 hours of sleep. Okay. So we increase that another 20%. That puts you at about 5 kilowatts. So you need a 5 kilowatt 12 volt. Those, let me see what those new ones. Is here. Here we go. Let's just the 280 amp hour. The batteries that I have been. Sorry, looking for the right website here. The batteries that I have been recommending for 12 volts right now are these. These are probably really good ones for you too, because they're the metal batteries. If I can figure out how to get the screen. Oh, I gotta click on the right one. It won't let me click on it. There it goes. All right, so the batteries I've been recommending for these, it's not these three, these 48 volt ones, is down here in the batteries. These metal case batteries right here. They got these 280 amp hour batteries. And they are 3.584, so that's 3.5 kilowatts. So you're going to need probably 2 of these, and that should get you through a 10-hour night with a nice mini split. And you'll have a little bit to spare because you're going to need about 4.8 kilowatt hours to run the mini split, and then you're going to need a little bit of buffer room there so things don't shut down and you get little exceptions. And of course, as soon as you hook it up. Now, the nice thing about these is if and they're nice and compact. They're metal cases. They come with straps that you can bolt them down with too. Let me see if I can find them for you. And I'm just going to put the QR code here on the screen for the page that I was on that has all my components and stuff on it with this suggestion. And then you can just scroll down to batteries and find it there. Let me see if I can find that. There we go. There's the QR code for that. So, and then you can just go down and it's the eco-worthy metal battery because the metal case dissipates the heat so much better, and the metal case is also a lot safer in your environment. But the coolest part is that it comes with some little metal brackets too that you can just strap it, bolt it down so that it's not moving around in your truck and stuff. And they've got the metal cages on the inside of those. They were really well built. So I feel really comfortable putting them there. And as you can see, they are truly made for RVs and campers and trolling motors. So they're made for that off-road type stuff. Now, I wouldn't go throwing them around, but still, I've got one of these in the solar shed that I use right now. Every day I've been cycling it for, I don't know, since they sent it to me, which was probably 3 months ago. And I have ran that thing ragged. There is a video out on it also. Let me see if I can get you the video real quick. And you can get a little bit of a context from the video. Because it is probably one of the best batteries that I have that I've done a review on easily. And let me just put in. What am I doing? just need the link. Comments, there we go. There's the link to that one. That's the video on that battery. And then of course the QR code will give you the link to the battery also. So you should be able to find it in either place. But that one, and I would suggest 2 of those, and your mini split should be set. And then if you do the Orion for charging, then you don't even have to worry about solar charging or solar charge controllers or any of that stuff. So you should be able to get that. Now, the thing you're going to have to keep in mind is that if you do run for 10 hours, you're going to be 5 kilowatt hours down. You are going to need some hours, some serious hours of driving at 50 amps. 50 amps times, it's 650 divided by 650 divided by 5 kilowatts. 650. You're going to need 7 to 8 hours base of driving, of idling or running for that thing charging in order for it to get back up to 0. So that will get you around that 10 hours, and it's going to be give or take a little bit depending on what else you have plugged in, what else you're doing, if you started off short, if it's able to do 50 amps the whole time it's running or not, and all that kind of stuff. So that would be where I would go. Hopefully that answered your question. Mini split, absolutely. 324 is going to be a little short because 324 times is going to be 4.2 kilowatts, and in order for 10 hours you're going to need 4.8, and you're going to need 4.8 kilowatts, and you're going to need some buffer space in there. So I would say 324 is a little bit low. I would do either 2 324s or 2 280s. Both of those should get you home. Otherwise, you'll come up a little bit short. About 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours in, it'll start running down on you. Unless, of course, you're looking for an air conditioner and you're setting it on 76 or something, and you're just really running it light and not running it heavy and stuff. Then you can get away with it, but I lost my spot. There we are. They've got 12, 24, 48 module units for RVs. They've been emailing me lately. Yeah, they've got them all over the place now. "10 hours of sleep." Oh, I did see some of this. I guess that scroller on the side of the screen is working. 1 server rack battery once you start scale stacking with a 12 volt. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you could do 1 server rack battery too. 1 server rack battery would get you 5.12 kilowatts, which would get you pretty close with 4.8 kilowatts. So 1 server rack battery would get you there also. That's a good point too. Let's just look at that real quick. Can get you one of those also. Let's do. And this might even be a little easier to mount somewhere in there. I've got these mounted in this picture. I can show you a picture where a server rack battery, what it would kind of look like. So if you look at this here, you'll see right there, that's a server rack battery. And I've got it setting up, pointing up. Now I just strap these to the wall when we go out. But that would actually work also for you. But you need the 12 volt version. Those are going to be, let's see, probably end up being about the same price too, maybe even a little cheaper, and you get it all in one battery. Oh, but oh no, those are 12 volt. Those aren't 24. Yeah, those are 12 volt. That would be a good solution too. Batteries. And where do they hide them? Nothing. Server rack. All right, here we go. Let me just see. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Sorry, guys. Let me just add that back. To remove you, add you. Oh, you are being a pain. I'm going to stop that screen. I'm going to share. Oh, that's what I did wrong. Okay. There we go. I didn't share my whole screen. All I did was share a window. Okay, so here's this whole. So what we need is we need the 24 volt, 12 volt. Yeah, they've got the Huskies too, with the big batteries, but I don't really care for those as much. I like the, where did that, the heck did this thing do? There it is. So something like that. Let's see, that's 48 volt. What is this thing doing? What happened to their 12 volt batteries? Did they get rid of them? Did EG4 get rid of their 12 volt batteries? Well, let me try something else then. Let me just try, be surprised if they, you need it for a truck. So we need one that fits into your truck comfortably. So I would say we probably want to go with, just looking for the right one here because they have them, the rack mounts in 12 volts, but I don't even, there they are. No, see, those are not there either. It's almost like the 12 volt rack mount batteries vanished off the face of the earth, but they used to be everywhere. There it is. No, that's not it either. That's awful weird. That is awful weird. It's like they stopped selling them or something. I don't know why. Well, you know what? I could always try. You can't find them on Amazon. They really don't exist anymore, do they? The trick is here is getting one of the good brands and not getting one of those cheapies. And they're 48 volt here too. I'll be daggummed. They got rid of them all. Yeah. Edwin, give me an email. I'll hunt you down a couple of good options so that you don't have to guess. I can't find. I was going to suggest the EG4 battery. I'll take a look at a couple of other brands and see if I can find one that'll work for you. If you have, depending on the space that you have too. I mean, I know the eco-worthy metal batteries are really well built, and I've tested them myself, so I'm comfortable with them. But the rack mount might be the right one because then you only need a single battery. And then the battery balancer and everything will keep it all straight for you. You don't have to worry about paralleling them or any of that garbage. So that would even make it easier. So, but just email me. I'll just put a link here for, it's just Matt at mattmansolar.com. And I will hunt you down a couple of suggestions so that you know which ones are good ones and which ones to look at. And that way you don't have any guesswork. But that's obviously, yeah. And Mike's Solar Garage is absolutely right too. If you can mount 2 batteries, it'll keep the system much more stable with the extra capacity, similar to saltwater reef aquariums, the more volume it is. And he's absolutely right, because you're going to be running it right up to that limit of 4.85 kilowatts a day. So you're going to have 5.1 kilowatts. And I did account for some idle consumption and those type of things, but having that extra buffer would allow you to have a day where you didn't drive as far and still have enough battery power to run your air conditioner and stuff like that. But that's Inverter. They have the 460. That one might work too, but that's going to be close to. And Watt Cycle has the 600. I'll get you a couple links and send them over for you of all of those, because those are the Watt Cycle 600 is a good one. The Vader, it's 460 is close to the right size too. It's the same as the 280s, the two 280s. But as you can see here, even the exact science on this isn't exact, because what will end up happening is there'll be some idle consumptions. You'll want to plug something in. You'll look for a light. You'll plug in this. You'll do that. You'll want to make coffee, stuff like that. And you don't want to make it to the point where you can't do that. You just want to make it to where you can either add to it where you can do that, or that it's big enough to go ahead and do that. So you don't want to limit yourself to where you turn on the air conditioner, and if you run anything else, it shuts off an hour early. You want to make sure that you have enough leeway there, that if you stop an hour early and you didn't drive, you drove 9 hours instead of 10, you have enough. If you decide you want coffee, you have enough. If you decide you want a light, you have enough. So a little bit of flex in there will do it. But you're looking at raw usage, about 4.8 to 5 kilowatt hours is what you absolutely have to have. You're looking at 8 to 10 hours of pure driving just to get you back to a starting point there. And then anything over that buffer is going to make life a whole lot easier for you. I think that I lost complete track of where I was here. 23 recommendations. How many batteries you think you need? Which I think we went through that 1 to 2, depending on the size of the batteries. Mini split, 1 battery, 324 amps, a little small. 1248, 6 units in RVs, been emailing me lately. Yep. AC, 10 hours of sleep, that's good. You're gonna need it. Server rack battery, once they start scale it, yeah. And he's right about that. The putting in a second, those batteries will fit really nicely because they're thin when they're laying against the wall like that. No problem. I run 11 hours. Okay, that's good. Concerns about DC to DC. My only concern about DC to DC is no problem. From what I've seen, those, if you're talking about the DC to DC, that Victron device running at 50 amps, it's actually really, from every report that I've seen, I tested it and played with it a little bit and didn't have any problem, but I did not run it for 10 or 12 hours. But I know some that have, and they did not have. Victron's pretty good about it. Now, you are going to be running it at max capacity. So what you're going to want to do is make sure that you look very closely at the right wires. Make sure that the wires can easily support what you want to do. Don't cut it short. Don't, especially if you're going to be the cabin and where your batteries are going to be is only a few feet. Yes, the wire is going to cost you 2 to 3 times more than what a normal wire would. I mean, you're talking about the big battery cable size wires that you're going to want to run from one to the other. And there's no other way around it though. At that amperage, you're going to have the big wires if you want, especially if you're going to run it for 11 hours straight. As far as the equipment being able to handle it, I wouldn't have any worries about that. What I would worry about is the connections and the wires. That's where you're going to run into your problems. Yes. The Blue Sea is one of the good brands. They've got the great breakers. They've got great equipment, and I would have no worries of anything Blue Sea as long as it's rated correctly. Make sure that it's rated for the right amperage. That's where the big trick is going to be. And I'm not sure what that device max wire size is. You might be able to find out real easy from something like ChatGPT. What is the max wire size for the Victron DC to DC 50 amp charger? Four-og, and I would go with it. I would use the 4-aught. It's technically you can get by with the 6, but if it supports 4, I would do the 4 because you're going to be running it at max. It also recommends a 60 to 70 amp fuse, and I would do that also. It says that usually 6 is, and that this is all, I would agree with all of this because 6 is usually what you need for 50 amps. Safely 50 amps, you can get away with 8 if it's really a short run, but I wouldn't. But it says that it'll support 4, and you're going to want the 4 to keep it nice and cool and safe running for that length of time at one time. So that's what I would recommend there. And then you shouldn't have any problems with it as long as you got good connections on it. Use some good ferrules, make sure they're crimped good, make sure everything is nice and tight, and you shouldn't have any issues with it. And yeah, and if you're Blue Sea is a great brand. Don't worry about that. If it's Blue Sea, it would be fine. All right. I don't even remember what I was talking about, guys. But I'm glad you asked. Erwin, that's great questions, and that's exactly what we're here for. Exactly what I'm here for is to talk and help people like that. I haven't even got halfway through my coffee yet, though. All right, so we talked about the 4 main basic components. We talked a little bit about wires. I got a couple of other components here that we can go into and talk a little bit about. And as always, if you have more questions, feel free to post them. I've got no issues with that, as you can tell. I will stop and answer them as best I can. So let's look at, I still haven't figured out the key to what causes it to actually switch the screen. Sometimes it switches, sometimes it don't. All right, so let's take a look at this image here. And let's talk about bus bars. And you can see here, I have 4 bus bars. Now, I have a very specific way that I do things. And most people do them similar. Some people do them a little bit different depending upon what they're trying to accomplish. I know Mike does his a little bit different because he doesn't have a central shunt. But we'll get into those pieces here in a second. So let's talk about these 4 bus bars and what the bus bars are for. A bus bar is basically a place to connect a bunch of larger devices that allows you to intentionally control where everything is coming and going from. So for example, you'll notice here I have 2 bus bars down on the bottom. I have one negative and I have one positive. This positive bus bar down here on the bottom has only 2 things connected to it. Now it has a bunch of wires connected to it, but there's only 2 items connected to it. The first one is these 3 red wires running down right here. All 3 of them run down to batteries. And this 4th one that runs over here is running up there. So they are all batteries. So I have the first one here runs down to a DIY battery. The second one runs over here to this watt cycle, and the third one runs over back to an EG4 100 amp hour battery. So all of the batteries connect there to that bus that basically puts all the power in one central location. When I get a new battery in, I can put it on that bus, and I don't have to worry about rewiring everything. I don't have to worry about connecting one battery to another. And a lot of batteries, you connect battery 1 to battery 2, battery 2 to battery 3. I don't have to worry about any of that. All of my batteries can go into a central bus. And the reason for that is that it allows me to fuse each one of them independently. That means if a battery has a problem, it has a short, or it has an issue, then a fuse can pop on it. I can have a T-class fuse on there. I can have an A&L fuse on there. There's an A&L built into the watt cycle. There's a T-class on the DIY battery. There's a breaker on the EG4 battery. And in addition to that, a lot of people will even go so far as to add another breaker on the entire batch of them. I do that here with a breaker on-off switch. This is an actual 125 amp breaker that probably should be larger size, but I don't ever run it in that high of a capacity, so I haven't really had to worry about it. But this breaker takes everything from this bus. So all the batteries come into this bus, and then this bus leaves and goes through that breaker. That allows me to physically look down and see what is connected to it and know that all the batteries there. It also allows me to easily add new batteries to the system without rewiring everything and connecting things, all this, and having wires going everywhere. It eliminates a lot of confusion, and I know for sure exactly what's connected there. Now, let's look at the negative side on the negative bus bar. The negative bus bar is exactly the same thing. It has a little bit different purpose on this side though. On this side, all the batteries are connected to it just like on the positive side. But the difference is this one has what we call a shunt. Now, a shunt is another component here that we're going to talk about here after bus bars, or here in the middle of bus bars. But a shunt basically is like a fuel gauge. It watches all the power coming in and out of your batteries, and it basically, instead of saying this battery right here is 50% full, and this battery over here is 50% full, and this battery down here is 48% full, and then trying to figure out what's in there, it actually gauges all of the power. So I tell it that this battery bank, all of the batteries together, are this big. And then it watches how much I use and how much I charge, because everything going in and out of these batteries has to go through either this shunt on the negative side, which can measure the power, or this breaker on the positive side, which can detect when there's a major flaw in the system and stop things from happening. Okay, that's the first intention of my breakers. Now, you'll notice right above these, I have another set of breakers, or another set of bus bars. And the reason this bus bar set is here is to connect all the other devices to the batteries. So this one comes out on the positive, it comes out of here and connects to this bus bar. And this allows all the user devices to connect to it. So I have one for the inverter that runs up here. I got one for this charge controller that runs over here. I got one for this inverter that runs over here. I got one for, it might be all of them. 1, 2, 3, oh, and one for the charge inverter, which is basically a charger that runs off of AC power, where I can plug it into a generator or my house or the grid or whatever I want. But all of the positive devices that add to the batteries, that use the batteries, they're all mounted on this side. Same purpose. It allows for this switch in the middle to protect the whole system. So if something shorts out or causes a major problem, then it shuts everything off. The whole thing clicks down and goes off. On the negative side, it is exactly the same purpose, except as you remember, this one had the shunt here to do the measuring. So the whole purpose of this side is to keep all the batteries on the bottom, on the both negative and positive, and all the devices on the top. This makes it very easy for me to add and remove devices. Now, if I was building a system that was going to be permanently located someplace, I probably would still do it with bus bars, simply because it allows for that flexibility of knowing each connection. I know where everything is supposed to connect. There's no confusing spaghetti wiring under there where this connects to that and this one connects to that and these two wires are bolted together and this one's wrapped with tape and this one's, none of that. They're basically, they are mounted on this on these bus bars. You can see these covers on the bottom two here. I actually pulled the covers off the top here when I took this picture in hopes that you would be able to see a little bit more detail, but we can't. But you can see the covers here that cover these up, that prevent me from accidentally touching it with some other wire or touching it with a wrench or anything else like that. And this allows me to easily hook new devices up, disconnect new devices. If I needed a charger, I can run the positive to the positive bus. I can run the negative to the negative bus, and I know all the devices connected to it are going to be measured properly. The fuel gauge is going to stay accurate, and everything's there. Same thing's true with batteries. If I go in here and I say, okay, I want to add, like I did last week with the watt cycle battery, and then I can go into the Victron Shunt, and I can say, okay, I probably could show you that real quick. I can go into the Victron Shunt, VRM, and let me find the screen here. I don't understand why it doesn't want me to do that. It's very weird. See, it won't let me click on it now, but if I come up here and do this, it allows me to do it. Okay. So let's just log in here real quick to the Victron VRM. And in this installation, I am using a Venus system. For those of you who don't know, it's a Raspberry Pi that has the Victron software installed on it. It acts just like a Servo GX. The only real difference is you don't have all the cool ports that a Servo has. Servo has all the ports you can plug into by native. You have to buy adapters to connect some to USB. If you have a couple of devices like I have here, I have one connecting the charge controller and one connecting the shunt, then that's all you really need. Not a big deal. If you have a bunch of them like I do on my 24-volt test system, where I have multiple charge controllers and multiple shunts and multiple this and that, then you're going to want more ports. And if you want more ports, then finding a whole bunch of USB stuff and all that's just a pain in the butt. So you go ahead and get a real Servo. It also allows for battery communications and things like that. There isn't much difference in the operation of the two. They both work really well. With this one, we were going to go in here. So it's very easy for me to go to the device list and say, okay, the shunt, I want to open this up and take a look at the shunt. And so when I do this, I can basically tell it how big the gas tank is, how much batteries is the battery. So for example, in my system, I have a 100 amp hour EG4, I have a 304 amp hour DIY battery, and I have a 314 amp hour watt cycle battery as it's configured today, I think. I think there's only those three. And so if I come over here, I should see the 304 plus the 314, which is 618, plus the 100 amp hour, which puts me at 700 ampere. So I tell it how big the gas tank is. And it keeps track of all the power that comes in and out of this gas tank and tells me how much is left in there. It doesn't say this battery has this amount, this battery has that amount, which if I want to see that, I can definitely go to that. I can say, okay, the DIY battery is at 69%, the EG4 battery is at 76%, and the watt cycle battery is at 67%. But what the shunt does is it takes it as one big source of battery. It doesn't matter where the power comes from. It knows there's 718, I don't even remember, 718 amp hours in there. And so it basically calculates based on how many are used, how much is left. Doesn't matter where they come from, doesn't matter how imbalanced they are, doesn't matter if it pulls from this one more than that one, if that one works. There's still that amount of gas in the gas tank, and it's still going to be empty when it's empty. And that's what's really important when you're looking at this, and that's why the shunt is important. And that's why the bus bars are important in this situation, because it allows you to separate where the battery power is and where all the using devices are, and put that shunt in the middle on the negative side to basically be like a gatekeeper. And every amp hour that goes out, it says an amp hour subtract, and every amp hour that comes in, an amp hour goes in. All of the pluses and minus users are up here. So the chargers are up here, the inverters are up here, If you'll notice this little switch right here, this little off-on switch right here, runs over here for the negative also. And it takes this 48 volts, it runs it through this little step-down device, which turns it into 12 volts and runs it over to run all of my Raspberry Pis and stuff, because I didn't want them going off when the inverter went off. I wanted them running on pure battery power. But the shunt still measures when that power is used, so that none of that power is inaccurately accounted for. And so at any time, I can go over here to, I have to remove on that and add on this. Starting to get the hang of it. At any time, I can go over here and see, okay, I have 2,292 watts of power being converted and used as AC, but I have a total of 2,424 watts being used total of battery power. That means all the idle consumption for anything else that I've got on that power wall, whether it be the extra Victron charger, whether it be the extra inverter that doesn't have anything hooked up, whether it be the EG4 inverter that is still running all of the load sources here, all of the battery power together, that shunt is measuring all of it so that none of it is lost. And that way I have an accurate representation of what's in there. I've figured out that the Victron shunt is so far is probably the most accurate state of charge. Is it perfect? No, none of them are perfect. Anytime you have the butterfly effect over a period of months, or sometimes even weeks, but if you adjust your Victron shunt, if you go in and you set the amperage and the voltage and all of that, and you do it at high loads and stuff like that, you can get pretty darn accurate. I've been able to run for 3 or 4 months at a time and come up 2 or 3% off. And 2 or 3% off for months at a time is really good, considering if I had a hurricane and things were knocked out for 2 weeks, my charge would be pretty darn close to perfect by the time 2 weeks was over. So I wouldn't have to worry about it there. But that is the purpose of having bus bars and shunts. And that is why, if you're looking at these bus bars and shunts, that explains the other item, which is the, whoops, wow, click, 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 there we go. That explains why all of those connections are really important, because you have all of those wires and all of those connections. So it goes back to all 3 of these all work together. The wires, the connectors, the bus bars, the shunts, the breakers, and the fuses are also another component here that you have to worry about. So breakers and fuses are anything that's going to protect you from over voltage, of pulling too much current, of shorting things out, and protecting in multiple places is really important. So for example, here I protect, each battery has its own breaker or fuse. Now, I personally think that it would be best if every battery had a T-class fuse and the whole thing had a T-class fuse. Unfortunately, they're a little bit expensive for a lot of the testing that I'm doing to do that on every one of them, considering I'm right here watching it most of the time when I'm doing that. So I don't do that. Now, if I had a home system, like Mike's, I don't know if Mike, if you're still here, but Mike's solar, Mike's garage, or Mike's solar garage, his system has a T-class fuse for each of the banks, and then one for each of the batteries. And that's actually a really good practice. It's very helpful. I have a breaker for the whole thing, a breaker and a fuse for the whole thing, or a breaker and a switch, an on-off switch for the whole thing. And I have a breaker for each battery, or a T-class fuse. The DIY has a T-class fuse. The Watt Cycle has an A&L fuse and a breaker. And the EG4 has an internal breaker. But I also have the master one up here at the top. Now, the master one up here at the top, in my case, is massively undersized. I could support, I've got 1/aught wire. I could easily have a 200 amp breaker there. I've got 100 or 125. I don't remember which. It's relatively small. I did that because if I decided I'm testing with this system most of the time, if I hit something of that high of power, doesn't matter if it burns my wires out or not, something's wrong, stop. So I kind of toned it down a little bit myself. You are still here. Okay, good. I was just saying you have those, you have T-class fuses, I know, to each bank, and then you have a T-class fuse to the whole system. Do you have T-class fuses to each battery also? I can't remember on your setup if you did or not. But either way, it's a good practice. The way he's done it really is a good practice. The only real difference between the way he's doing it and the way I do it is I make sure that everything goes through a central bus so that the shunt can measure it all. And he's operating more off. I operate off of voltage also. I don't use the state of charge. I use the state of charge for informational purposes for me to have an idea of where it is. The system itself doesn't react to state of charge in my case. A lot of people like to have their chargers come on in state of charge and stuff like that. Mine all operate off of voltage for all of those operations. And that allows me to mix brands of batteries, different sizes, and all of that. Each string of batteries, and then between the bus bars and the inverter. Okay, then that makes perfect sense. So he's got each string. So these, if he's got a string of 6 EG4 batteries, then that string has a T-class fuse that runs to a bus, and then between that bus bar and another bus bar of another set of batteries has a breaker, and then where it runs up to the inverter, he also has a T-class fuse there. And there I'm using the actual breaker that's in the inverter. Probably a much better way, the way he did it. T-class fuses are a lot faster reacting and a lot more responsive than breakers. Breakers usually react to heat and it getting hot and being shorted out for a period of time before it actually pops, whereas a T-class fuse actually has a point where it goes over and it just snaps and goes off and closes it. So I think his method is probably better. And in the situation where he's got a permanent setup like that, it's probably a good reason why it's like that. Thanks, Mike. Sorry I using you as an example, but you've got good examples over there. And so that is the shunt, the wires, the breakers, the bus bars. And then the last thing I wanted to, I think it's the last one, and I need to make sure that I didn't mix these two together. And I just want to check this before I do. Sometimes, yeah, I didn't. Okay, so the last item on the list is an off-on switches. And I included this because a lot of the times the off-on switches get confused with the breakers or fuses. And let me give you an exact definition difference between the two. A breaker and a fuse is basically something that goes off when something goes wrong. You pull too much power through it, you have a short and the system cuts off. In a case of a breaker, it's usually resettable, just like your home breaker. You know, you plug something in, it pops the breaker, you go flip the breaker, you try it again. Oh, I had 2 things running at the same time. Oops, sorry. That's a breaker. A fuse is a one-off type thing. A fuse goes out and it's be like a car fuse, or in your RV you have fuses and it pops and you have to actually take it out and put a new fuse in. T-class fuses, as you've heard us talking about, are just very large fuses that are surrounded by sand to extinguish a very, very high voltage, high amperage DC connections. So the T-class fuse is just a much larger version of those little bitty easy little ones. And then you got the little tiny fuses which go into wires and stuff. And the video covers this. If you go back and watch the video I released this morning, it goes over all these 9 items, but probably in some aspects more detail than I'm saying here, in other aspects in less detail. Definitely more polished. But then you have switches, and an off-on switch is exactly what it implies. It is no different than walking over to the wall switch on your wall and shutting the light off. It does not have any safety features in it for you, other than it's an easy way to turn things off so that if you want to work on them, you can. In my case, you'll see here the picture right here in the middle See if I can switch that. In my case, you'll see here, this picture right here in the middle of this breaker, but it's also an off-on switch. An off-on switch, did I left that on the screen that whole time? Get rid of that. Okay. The off-on switch of this is also a breaker. So, and a lot of breakers can act as off-on switches. You can flip the breaker to manually shut it off. And if it gets an over voltage, it will shut off. But a off-on switch is not necessarily a breaker or a fuse. So they are not mutually exchangeable. You really need to understand that they're not. Like this down here, you'll see this little bitty switch breaker that I have here. I do not use that as a breaker. I use that as a switch only because the amperage rating on these is wildly inaccurate. Every test I've seen, they either don't pop early enough or they pop too soon. So in this case, this is probably a 100 amp breaker that I use as a switch to turn off the 48 volt power flying to this that turns off the 12 volt. But in the little wire right here, I have a little inline fuse that's probably 3 or 4 amps that power all the 20 to 12 volt stuff, because 3 or 4 amps would be a couple hundred watts, and I shouldn't need more than a couple hundred watts. So I also protect the wire that's running to this. So I use this as a switch, not as a breaker, because it would never pop even if it did hit the amperage it was supposed to be rated for. So a lot of people see this and they're like, well, why are you using this garbage? Because it is a good, cheap switch. It's just very, very, very low usage on my part. It's running 2 or 3 amps and I use it as a switch, and therefore it doesn't cause me trouble. I would never use it to actually run a real system. And that's the real difference between breakers, fuses, and switches. Breakers, power stops when it gets too high, and you can reset it. You can turn it. You can turn it back on. Fuses, it pops the same as a breaker. The difference is it's disposable. You have to replace it. A lot of these come in a lot of different forms: inlines, screw-ins, push-ins. You see them in your cars. You see them in practically every 12 volt device you have. And even sometimes chargers like this will have them built in inline here. They're everywhere. Christmas tree lights have little bitty fuses in them. Those little fuses, when they pop, you have to replace them. That's why it's a fuse. That's what it means. It has to be replaced. Then you have switches. You turn it off, you turn it on, but it does nothing but turn it off and turn it on. In my case, it allows me to turn them off so I can work on them. If I needed to work on an inverter or a charge controller or any of that stuff along that top line, I can flip that breaker off on switch, that big one right in the middle, and the power, all the 48 volt power across the whole board goes off. And when the 48 volt power across the whole board goes off, then I can go up and I can work on my 6000 XP, or I can work on the ZLPower, or I can work on a charge controller or any of that stuff safely, because the power to the whole bus bar is turned off and all of the devices. And that's another benefit of having the buses. I know that everything runs through that bus. And if I shut that bus off, everything gets shut off. And that's what's really important about it. All right. I think I've covered all 9 of the pieces here, from batteries to charge controllers to inverters to solar panels. And then the second level was shunts, wires and connectors, off-on disconnect switches, bus bars, and breakers and fuses. That is all 9 of the parts in the first 2 phases of the basic solar stuff that I've been running through for the last couple of months, been releasing videos on. I'm going to come out with a phase 2 of this probably that will have some more higher level pieces of it. But I took them all today, trimmed them all down, and released them this morning. And I thought it would be a good subject to cover in the live stream this week. And I think I have done that. And I have stopped paying attention to comments as I switch screens. Let me go back over here. The T-class fuse always trips and trips quickly. It helps protect downstream appliances from shorts through events of H-bridge short outs. Yes, shoot through events of H-bridge shorted out. Yeah, the T-class fuse is, I've got the, I said identically the same thing that he said. T-class fuse is a very fast reacting fuses. All fuses have a speed reaction of how quickly they react and how quickly they can respond to something going wrong. And as far as I know, the T-class fuse is close to the fastest reacting one there is. And it's one of those things where if you have, and they make fuses that are slow reacting intentionally, knowing that you could have something that spikes up for just a second and then comes back down. You don't want the fuse popping all the time. So you may have a slow reacting fuse. In the case of a T-class fuse, you install that when you want the fast acting fuse. You want to say, look, when it gets here, stop. Don't wait. Don't wait till it gets hot. Don't wait till it heats up. Don't give it 10 seconds. Don't give it nothing. Stop and shut the system down. And that's what a T-class fuse does. All right. I think I have covered everything. I would love and encourage all of you to send me your comments for what you would like to see in phase 2 of all of the basic DIY solar lessons. I'd love to do another series of probably 5 to 10 of these items. I'll probably break it up into 2 groups, each one getting increasingly a little bit more, what do you want to call it, a little bit more elaborate, more complicated. I covered a bunch of automation stuff last week. Next week, I am looking to do a favorite tools that are cool and waste of money, and tools that I would avoid and not spend my money on at all. Basically, I'm going to basically highlight what my favorite tools are. I'm going to invite a couple of other folks to join me, people that use a bunch of different tools and stuff. And if I can get a few of them here, great. If I can't, great. We'll do it either way, whether it's me and one, whether it's me plus 3, it doesn't make any difference. I'm going to see if we can get a few. I have a very, very busy week planned, so I am going to hope that I get some good responses really quick, because I don't really have the first time in a very long time, I don't have the time to spend on any extensive amount of time this week to do a bunch of planning for this. So I will send out a couple of invites, and I will be here, and hopefully a few of them will be here with me. Let me just check on where we at here. I want to how do I do that? Oh, this one. I want to say thank you again. We broke 23,000 subscribers this week, so we were at 23,050, and I want to say thank you to those extra 50. Don't want to leave you guys behind either. You're just as important as the first 23,000. The response lately has been wonderful. You guys are just fantastic, and mind-boggling growth that we continue to have is just fantastic, and I truly do this because I enjoy showing you guys and teaching you guys what I know and what I'm learning as I go along. And especially, well, maybe not especially, occasionally I point out the things I do wrong also. And sometimes I miss them, and others have to tell me about them. So I make sure I bring those up too. But hey, that's the fun of learning DIY solar. I do like to stress to everybody, I am going to show you guys the sneak peek of next week's video that releases, which I'll be doing here in just a minute. But I do want to stress that just because we're DIY, that does not mean that you can skimp on any of the wire sizes, bad crimps, things like that. Please be safe. If you don't understand what you're doing, please contact an electrician. Make sure that he gives you some real help. Sometimes DIY can be a lot of fun. It can also be very dangerous if you're uncomfortable or you don't know what you're doing. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't learn, but you should do it safely, and that's all I'm encouraging you to do. is learn to do it safely. We all make mistakes, and all you can do is play everything super safe, have a very, very high level of respect for voltage, DC and AC, and keep in mind that a lot of this, especially DC voltage, can be very, very dangerous, and anything over 50 volts, meaning all of those solar panels that you have that are running in series over 50 volts, can be fatal. So please do not take chances with them. Make sure you turn things off, wait for the sun to go down, cover up your panels, do every safety measure you can, because you only have to screw up once. And then I'm going to lose a subscriber and you're not going to get to come back. So I would appreciate it if you do be careful. And I'd love to hear about the different safety measure you guys are taking. I'd love to show some of my other readers things that we do to take some precautions. Right now in the industry, you'll see that there are a lot of us DIY YouTubers that are taking the time to show you guys some of the safety measures we're taking for fire prevention, for gas release prevention and things like that. And I saw some from another group too of lightning strike preventions and other dangers like that. These are all things that we should all be paying attention to. So I want to encourage you, don't dismiss them, but educate yourself and make sure you pay attention and stay safe. But have fun and build your system. It is really important that we all understand what we're doing here. And someday you very well may have somebody that needs your help and ask you a question. It would be nice if you could answer it and have a good answer for them too. All right, thank you guys. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And for the members who have access to all the videos ahead of schedule, thank you for your couple bucks a month so I can give you that access. I am going to jump over to the video that is releasing next week about the new inverter that came out. It is one awesome tool. They sent it to me. I really wasn't expecting it to be as awesome as it is, but the ZPower inverter is basically let's see if I can get this to rewind before I hit start. The ZPower inverter, I'm going to pull it up here, is basically a SREN inverter. The build out here is exactly the same, and you're going to see some pictures that I got from Doc ZXYZ from one of his videos where he had some that I recognized it being the same. I wrote him and confirmed with him that he thought it was also the same, and he agreed and allowed me to publish the content in his from his video in mine. So I got a screenshot of it in there. This thing has wonderful, wonderful reviews. Even though the brand has changed, they are selling it here in Amazon, comes with a complete Amazon warranty, and the work will be done here in the US from what I understand. So hopefully you'll get something from it, and I hope you enjoy it. And I am going to see if I can get this thing to play correctly. I have no idea. Okay, that worked. Here we go. Thanks again, guys. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you next week. I was in the process of hooking this all up, testing it, as you know, with this, and then I decided this inverter is bigger than just some little 120 volt box. It's got 10,000 watts. This thing can run my whole house. So let's do it. Let's run the whole house. So that is exactly what is coming up next. Come all this. Yep. Wrapped up nice and well, protect from a little bit of weather. these are the indelible signs of an inverter. Awkward size. All right. Model PVT10K 48 volt 200 amp SP hybrid solar inverter. 5,000 watt, 5,000 watts. So it's a 10,000 watt split phase inverter with a 120 amp charger. Split phase, single phase, 10,000 watt single phase. Split phase 5,000, 5,000 watt. Battery input 48 volt. Discharge current 220 amp. Max battery charge current 200 amps. PV input 2 MPPTs for 125 volts to 425 volts. 22 amps each. 5,000 watts of PV input, 5,000 watts output max. Good pure. All right, full test is good. They're all in. They're all tight. Follow it down. Connects to the positive bus bar here. Everything polarity-wise is correct. That is extremely important at this point to get the polarity correct. Switch over here is for AC input switch. Is the off-on switch. So I'm assuming at this point the off-on switch is what we need to flip. And we have power. Looks like it's booting up. Preset output 120. Over that, fault light went off, charge light went off. Not showing any PV, which is good because there's no PV connected. That is a smiley face. So we come over here and we see 120.8 volts. And let's try a test plug here. If you don't have one of these, you should get one of these. These are very handy little tools. I'll put a link in the description. These just tell you that your wall plugs are actually hooked up correctly. You want two lights like that, which basically says that everything is wired correctly. If you have a open ground or open neutral, then this plug will tell you. Now let's run some loads and see what we can get out of this. So let's plug this in and see what kind of pull we get. You see a draw on the batteries. See 12 amps, 1,476 watts. I showed 12 amps, 31 from the battery, 240.5. So it is running in split phase. I was in the process of hooking this all up, testing it as you know with this, and then I decided this inverter is bigger than just some little 120 volt box. It's got 10,000 watts. This thing can run my whole house. So let's do it. Let's run the whole house. So that is exactly what is coming up next. I took a plug, wired it in, big giant 6-aught table, wired it into a plug, ran the big 50 amp cord across over to the house, and I powered the entire house. And I ran the air conditioners, I ran the window units, I ran the hot water heater, At one point, the hot water heater and the air conditioner started. And, you know, I was kind of surprised with the magnificent performance of this. And then I realized this is the same inverter. I had noticed this layout here looked familiar to me. So I went back to a buddy of mine out on the line, Doc, and I looked at his video. Right now, I'm waiting for permission from him. If he gives it to me, I will show you his video of the SRNE inverter. This is a repackaged, the ZLPower is a repackaged SRNE inverter, or SRNE is the repackaged inverter. I don't know which one's which, but they're manufactured identical. The connections are the same, the PVs are the same, the output's the same, the communication board's the same, even the connections are the same, and underneath the covers is the same. So what I did is I ran my entire house for 24 hours off grid, 100% with this inverter. Now I ran into one problem. I didn't shut anything off. I just let it all run, and I figured, what the heck? What's the worst that can happen is the inverter is going to shut down. Now, the inverter did not shut down, I will tell you. I did not push to the point where it would shut down. For example, we didn't use the oven, but the hot water heater cycled on and off. The air conditioner cycled on and off, and I'm talking about the full 3-time, full house, whole thing, cycled on off and on. Every other device in the house I left completely alone, and I saw, and my wife saw, no problems with one exception. When the house power came back on, being operated from this, I switched all the clocks, set all the clocks. I did have problems with the internet router. When the AC would come on, there would be and I suspect it was a dip in the voltage that was causing it. It was a small dip in the voltage as it hit those capacitors and started that compressor. My suspicion is that a soft start would resolve this problem quite easily. As the air conditioner is now about 11 years old and has not had any issues since I installed it. So it's not a new unit, but it's also not an old unit that's in bad shape. So when it would start, the cable modem would reboot. I'm suspecting it is because there was a power loss. I checked the sine wave, which you'll see on the screen. I'll put that up on the screen right here. And you can see that it was perfect sine wave regardless of what happened. I never saw anything that was causing any troubles with it. I connected it right here to the connection, which is why the cover is off here while this is charging. And today, all it's doing is just doing some charging. But 24 hours, this thing outputted about 31 kilowatt hours of power to operate the house in that time frame between everything that was running. The only thing I did not test was what did it actually take to shut this down. And I was more worried about what damage would it do to the remaining of the items in the house than it was what was it going to take to shut this down. As far as operating off grid for a hurricane, I am all set. This thing is beautiful. It is a good piece of hardware under the covers because it is the same equipment that has fantastic reviews everywhere else. I tested it hard, and I mean I ran it like air conditioning all day long, and hot water heater and everything. Nothing different than I would run a normal house. This is a whole house solution. If I was going off grid, I think I would do 2 of them. And with the price that these are, you could do 2 of them for less the cost that you could do 2 12,000s or 2 6,000 XPs and end up with a much larger solution than you would have with 2 of these, or for a lot less price, you would end up with a lot larger solution. 2 of these ran in parallel, you would have 20,000 watts of power. And from what I saw, the surge, all my surge problems would go away. So I encourage you, if you've got one of these, or if you've got an SRNE or a couple of the other ones that are also rebranded the same thing, and you can tell from this layout down here that this is basically what they all look like. And if you've got one, I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear what you use your system for and how well it works for you, because it is obvious this is a really good unit. The only, like I said, the only real problem I had was that big air conditioner surge did cause a voltage drop. The sine wave was beautiful all the time. The output was beautiful. Other than that, I saw no difference from operating on grid all day long. And I am going to keep this one out here and use it for some future fun that we will have, but I will always be prepared for a hurricane when it comes. If my 6,000 isn't enough, I also have the 10K, the ZLPower 10K inverter that has a wonderful output and has really served me well up to this point. Thank you for watching. I hope that this video does you some good, and I'm going to go back and do some different real live testing on this thing. I haven't quite figured out what all that's going to be yet, but I will have a second video with this one with some follow-up. So if you've got something that you want to see coming from this, or you want to understand something that how it operates or something like that, please let me know. I'd be glad to demonstrate that and show you exactly how it works. As it stands right now, 2 thumbs up on this one. It worked great. It's a whole home solution. It is a hybrid inverter, not just an off-grid inverter. I did not check the backfeed scenario, so that might be something that I play with in the future. We'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Great week. Great show this week. Next week, it's going to be all about tools, all the good tools, all the bad tools, and the ones that are just a waste of your money. We'll see you then. Thanks for watching, and thanks again for being here.